Okay, wow. You have to hear this. The meeting this week, the one between President Zelensky and President Trump, it delivered a massive shock. And immediately after that, an even bigger diplomatic order came down. So Zelensky flies to Washington, right? He's specifically going after those long-range Tomahawk missiles, the ones that could actually hit deep inside Russia, target their war machine, and he failed. Got a flat-out denial. But then, and this is the kicker, just hours later, Trump makes this huge public demand, urgent, an immediate ceasefire. He's telling both sides, stop the killing. And here's the really critical bit, the military instruction. Go by the battle line wherever it is. I mean, this isn't just like news. It feels like a whole new playbook. Welcome to the military point. Before we continue, tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? We'd love to know.
Yeah, that tension you just laid out, that's exactly what we need to unpack today. That's our mission. We're diving into what actually happened in that Friday meeting. Because, it seems contradictory, doesn't it? On one hand, denying Kyiv weapons that could escalate things, no Tomahawks, but then almost in the same breath, demanding a ceasefire that kind of freezes things where they are now. It rewards the current military map, basically. We really need to look at the diplomatic thinking behind both of those moves.
Okay, let's start with the Tomahawks then, because that seemed like Zelensky's main goal, the whole reason for the trip, right? He wasn't there for, more bullets. He wanted cruise missiles.
It's all about range, strategic depth, you see. Tomahawks go way, way further than anything Ukraine has right now. The idea was to shift the war, move beyond just fighting on the ground, the real aim, hit Russia's war economy, deep inside their territory. We're talking oil facilities, energy plants, the stuff that funds the whole military operation, hit it where it hurts, inside Russia itself.
And the White House response, wow, it was immediate.
Yeah.
Public. Right there in the opening remarks, Trump said something like, he hoped they could resolve the war without thinking about Tomahawks. And then he added that bit about the Tomahawk being a weapon America needs. That felt pointed, like more than just a no. Oh, absolutely. It was a very firm no. And that line about America needing them, it suggests a couple of things, I think. First, these aren't just spare parts lying around. They're seen as critical U.S. assets. And second, giving them away carries huge geopolitical weight. Supplying Tomahawks means crossing an escalation line. And it seems the U.S. just wasn't ready to do that. Not right now, anyway. Okay, so that must have just pulled the rug out from under Zelensky's whole visit. So what did Kyiv say when they left? How did they handle that? I mean, the disappointment must have been obvious.
Well, they managed it carefully, diplomatically. Zelensky called the meeting productive, standard stuff. But he specifically declined to comment further on Tomahawks. And the reason he gave, that's the real insight from the whole visit. The U.S. doesn't want escalation. That single phrase, doesn't want escalation, that seems to be the core of the American decision here. It's this fear, this deep concern about the war spiraling, maybe triggering a direct response or spreading way beyond Ukraine.
Doesn't want escalation. So if that's the key phrase, does that mean the problem wasn't really the Tomahawk itself, but what Ukraine might do with it, the targets they were hinting at?
Precisely. I think that's exactly it. The U.S. is essentially saying, look, we'll help you defend yourself, sure,
right,
but we are not going to give you weapons for deep offensive strikes that could hit, say, major Russian cities or infrastructure critical to the Russian state itself. That's a line they wouldn't cross.
And remember, that unbelievable trade Zelensky apparently suggested before the meeting, that was wild. He said Ukraine has thousands of our production drones, and basically offered them up. You can have our drones if you give us Tomahawks. That sounds, well, it sounds pretty desperate for that specific weapon.
It really does. A very practical, almost transactional approach, wasn't it? Trying to barter this unique asset they have, their proven drones, for the long-range firepower they clearly felt they needed most. The optics of that are interesting, too. It shows just how vital Ukraine sees the Tomahawk. Not just another piece of aid, but the critical tool. And what's really fascinating is how this links back to what Trump was hearing from the other side.
Right. You mean the phone call with Putin, the day before the meeting. What was the Russian argument against the Tomahawks?
Putin apparently made two key points. First, he tried to downplay their impact on the actual fighting, saying they wouldn't really change things on the battlefield. But second, and this is crucial, he argued that Tomahawks, which definitely can reach big cities like Moscow, St. Petersburg, would just wreck the U.S.-Russia relationship, irrevocably. The message was pretty clear. Supply these missiles, and you're signing up for deep hostility for years. And it seems that risk assessment won the day in Washington.
Okay, yeah, that perfectly frames the U.S. focus on no escalation.
Right.
But then we get the second act. Hours later, Trump's in Florida. And he switches completely.
Yeah.
From denying offensive weapons to basically ordering peace, stop the war immediately. Just like that.
It's an incredible pivot, isn't it? And the instruction wasn't vague. He was very specific about how to pause. It wasn't let's negotiate. It was a ceasefire based on where the troops are right now. His exact words were reported as, you go by the battle line wherever it is. Otherwise, it's too complicated. You'll never be able to figure it out. You stop at the battle line.
Wow. That's a huge condition, isn't it? It basically freezes the conflict based on the current map. Whoever's holding ground right now gets to keep it, at least for the pause.
It certainly simplifies the immediate diplomatic problem how to stop the shooting, but it makes the long-term picture really complicated. By saying, stop at the battle line, you kind of sidestep all the tough questions about history, territory, negotiations. The priority becomes stopping the violence now over sorting out who owns what later. And that raises a big question for everyone listening. Is stopping the killing now worth potentially locking in those current lines, even temporarily? What do you think?
And he didn't just make it a military instruction, did he? He added that strong emotional element, too.
He did, absolutely. He added that both sides should go home, go to their families, stop the killing, and he apparently confirmed he'd said this same thing, stop fighting, go home, to both Zelensky and Putin directly. So it combines that immediate, pragmatic stop where you are with this humanitarian plea.
Okay, let's try and connect this to the bigger picture. Trump's position on territory, it seems to have shifted quite a bit over the last year or so. Remember before he met Putin back in August, there was talk of land swaps being necessary. Then later, he seemed to change tune, saying Ukraine could win everything back. So how does this stop at the battle line fit in? Did he say anything about whether Ukraine would have to give up land permanently?
No, he seemed to stop short of that this time. He didn't offer a final view on whether Ukraine would permanently need to cede territory. The difference, I think, between the old land swaps idea and this new battle line demand is the immediacy. Land swaps suggests negotiation down the road, give and take. Stop at the battle line is more of a command. Stop fighting now. It's maybe a way to address the reality on the ground without getting bogged down in the politics of final borders.
Right.
It's just stop the killing based on who's standing where today.
But this whole thing hinges on trust, doesn't it? Especially trusting Putin. Is this seen as a genuine move towards the deal? Or could Putin just be, playing for time? Stringing him along, as some might say.
Well, Trump apparently addressed that directly. He acknowledged that possibility that Putin might just be trying to buy time to achieve his war goals. But his conclusion apparently was quite confident. He said, I think that he wants to make a deal.
And he seemed pretty confident in his own ability to handle it too, right? He said something like, he's been played by the best, but always came out okay.
Yeah, he reportedly said, I've been played all my life by the best of them, and I came out really well. It's a strong signal about his own confidence in navigating this. He feels he can manage this kind of high-stakes negotiation.
And Zelensky, what was his take after the meeting when he spoke to European leaders?
Interestingly, Zelensky seemed to back that up, at least publicly. When he briefed European leaders later, virtually, he apparently reaffirmed his trust that Trump genuinely wants to end the war. And he even pointed to Trump's handling of things in the Middle East as sort of evidence that he can broker these complex deals.
So it all comes back to this really stark contrast within a single day. Ukraine goes asking for Tomahawk's long-range offensive power and gets shut down. The reason? No escalation, fear of widening the war. But then, almost immediately, comes this demand for a ceasefire, based purely on where the lines are drawn right now. Yeah. Feels like a balancing act, trying to cool down the immediate fighting, but potentially at the cost of cementing the current military situation, which benefits one side more than the other right now.
Exactly. And that leaves us with a really critical question to think about, doesn't it? Something for you, the listener, to really mull over. If the big worry driving the Tomahawk denial was escalation specifically, hitting things like energy infrastructure deep inside Russia, then what does it mean for actual long-term stability if the peace plan is just stop where you are? Does freezing the lines without tackling Russia's ability to fund its war machine, does that just pave the way for the conflict to flare up again later? It doesn't address the very targets Zelensky felt were needed to cripple the war effort in the first place.
That's a heavy question. Definitely something to think about regarding how we approach ending conflicts globally. You've been listening to The Military Point. Stay sharp, stay informed, and we'll catch you next time.